welcome to another video in this course. Now in this video, before we move on to make a screen recorder in Python, we need to understand what is OpenCV because we're going to be using OpenCV to make a screen recorder in Python. So I'm gonna tell you what OpenCV is and what are some of the most important applications of OpenCV. So let's get started with this video. Alright, so OpenCV basically stands for Open Source Computer Vision. So before we can actually understand OpenCV, we first of all need to understand this word CV, which basically stands for computer vision. Now, computer vision is basically defined as a field of study that seeks to develop techniques to help computers seize and understand the content of digital images such as photographs and videos. So we can say that computer vision is a field of artificial intelligence that trains computer to interpret and understand the visual world. Using digital images from cameras and videos and deep learning models, machines can pretty much accurately identify and classify objects and then interact to what they see. Alright, so now let's see what is OpenCV. So OpenCV is a Python library used for computer vision and machine learning. Now it is developed by the Intel Corporation. So OpenCV, the good thing about OpenCV is that it is cross-platform and it is absolutely free for use. Now it supports a wide variety of languages. So we're going to be using Python to understand OpenCV. We're going to implement it in Python, but it supports C++, MATLAB, and Java, which are the most common and popular programming languages as well. Now it supports a wide variety of platforms as well, like Linux, Windows, Macintosh, and then Android, and then FreeBSD and OpenBSD as well. Alright, so OpenCV will help us to develop a system which can process images and real-time videos using computer vision. So we're going to take advantage of basically real-time video in OpenCV to make a screen recorder in Python. So OpenCV focused on image processing, real-time video capturing to detect faces and objects as well. Now let's see what are some of the most important uses of OpenCV. So OpenCV is basically used to read and write images, and now we're gonna see this while we move on to the coding part of OpenCV. And then it is used for detection of faces and its feature. And then it is used for detection of shapes like circle, rectangle in an image, for example, detection of coin in an image. Now, similarly, it is used for text recognition in images, for example, reading a number plate, modifying image quality and colors, for example, Instagram cam scanner. So we can say that a lot of photo editing software uses OpenCV to make their software, and then it is used for developing augmented reality apps as well. Now, a lot of work is going on in self-driving car, robotics, as well as in photo correction apps. Now, all of them are using OpenCV a lot. So yeah, that's all we need to understand about OpenCV. So we will be using OpenCV to make a screen recorder in Python. Alright, now before we move on to cover OpenCV in Python, we first of all need to install it. Now in order to install it, open your command line if you're using Windows and terminal if you're using Mac. So I'm going to open my terminal inside PyCharm, and if you're also using PyCharm, then click on this option terminal here. So it's going to open your terminal inside PyCharm. Now in order to install it, just type pip install and then OpenCV -Python and hit enter. But if you're using a Python version 2 point something, then in here you need to install pip install and then CV2. So if you're using Python version 2.2, you need to type pip install CV2. But since we are using a Python version 3 point something, I'll just type OpenCV -Python and hit enter. But I'm not going to hit enter because I already have installed this module on my computer. But in your case, if that module is not installed on your computer, make sure that you hit the enter button to start installing that module on your computer. And make sure that you have your internet connection before you install this module on your computer. So it may take like a minute or two. So once this module is installed on your computer, you can now import it right here at the top. So just type here import, and it doesn't matter which version of Python you are using, you just need to import it like this. That is CV2. Alright, so now it is now imported. We can now use OpenCV and all of its functionality in Python. Alright, now finally we will start implementing OpenCV in Python. And now the first thing that we will learn is how we can actually read show and save or basically create an image using OpenCV. So for this, first of all, I need to read an image. So I have one image in my project location. So here is my project location and I named that image as lana.png. So let me just show you this image. So here we have this beautiful image. Now, first of all, we're going to basically read this beautiful image, which is named as lana.png, and then we're going to show it using OpenCV, and then we will just create, let's say, a copy of this image so that you learn how we can actually create an image using OpenCV. So now let's read this image. So right here, I already have imported, well, let me just import it again. So import CV2. And now, first of all, I will just read this image, and for this I will just use a function in OpenCV known as IamRead. Now the first argument I take is basically the name of the image, and now since this image is placed in my project location, so I can just directly access it with its name, which is lana.png. But if that image is placed somewhere else on your computer, then you need to specify the exact path of that image. Like for example, if that image is placed in your C drive, then you need to type C drive and then let's say inside some folder. So some folder, and then inside that folder it is basically that image. So make sure that you specify the exact location of that image. But if that image is placed in your project location, you can directly access it with its name, just like I did. And now for the second argument, I need to specify the flag. So let me just show you my presentation right here, and let me just make it full size to the screen. Alright, so for the second argument, we need to supply this flag argument. Now, if you want to load a colored image, then you either need to specify its integer value 1, or you need to type this whole thing. Or let's say if you want to load a grayscale image, then you either need to type this whole thing, or you can just specify its integer value, which is 0. Or let's say that if you want to load the actual image as it is, then either you can type -1, or you can type this whole thing, cv2.imread underscore unchanged in capital. So we're gonna basically first of all load a color image. So I will just specify here 1. So let me just open my PyCharm once again, and now in here I will just open my colored image. So I will just specify here 0, and now I will just store this image. So I will just store this image, let's say in this variable img. And now in here we have a Reddit, and now in order to show it, we're gonna use another function in OpenCV known as IamRead. So I'll just type here cv2.imread, and now the first argument it takes is basically the title of our image. So let's say it will be Lana. And now for the second argument, we need to specify the image that we want to basically show. It is basically show. Alright, now for the second argument, we need to specify that image that we want to read. So it is basically this image that we have stored in this variable img. So just type here img, and now in here I will just say that a cv2.wait key, and let's say that I will just show this image for 5 seconds. So in here, if you want to show this image for, let's say, 50 seconds, then you need to specify 50, but I will just show this image for only 5 seconds. And once we have this image for 5 seconds, we're gonna close this window. Basically this window in which Lana image is shown. So right here I've just typed a cv2, and then the function that we're going to use for this purpose is known as destroy all windows. Well, in here you can just use another function called destroy windows, which will only destroy that window that you have created. Basically it is destroy window, and then in here you need to specify that name, but it's much better that you just use this function called destroy all windows. Alright, so now if you just execute this whole code, first of all it will read this image, and then it will show it basically on some kind of frame, and the title of this frame will be Lana, and then it will just show this image for 5 seconds, and after showing it for 5 seconds, it's gonna destroy all the windows that we have created. So we only have created one window, so it's gonna destroy that window. Alright, so now we can execute this whole code right here. Yeah. Alright, so here we have that image of Miss Lina. So let me just execute it once again. Alright, so basically this time is in, I think, millisecond. We need to specify here 5000, and this 5000 basically mean 5 seconds because this time is in millisecond. Alright, so now if you just execute this whole code, it will now show this image for 5 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can see that it's showing a grayscale image, but let's say if you just specify here 1, and now this time it will show a colored image. So now if you just execute this whole code, it will now show this beautiful colored image. And now similarly, you can just specify here -1 as well if you want to show the original image. So our original image is basically or the colored image, so it's gonna show the colored image. But let's say that if the original image was a grayscale image, then it's gonna show a grayscale image. Alright, so now if we just execute this whole code, this time it will show again with the colored image for 5 seconds. Alright, so now let's say that if we just specify here 0, now it does not mean that I want to show this image for 0 second. It basically means that, so let me just first of all execute. Alright, so it basically means that do not close this window as long as I just don't click on this cross button. So it will just keep on showing this window as long as I don't click on this cross button. So now as soon as I just click on this cross button, you can see that it now has destroyed that window. Alright, now let's see how we can actually create an image or basically write an image. So basically creating and writing is basically the same thing in OpenCV. So right here, before destroying all the windows, we're gonna basically create an image. So it will be cv2.imWrite. For this we use this function called imWrite, and now the first argument it takes is basically the title of that image that we want to write or basically create. So let's say it will be lana1, or let's say I already have this image lana1.png and lana2.png. So I will just say that beautiful lana.png. Alright, and now the next argument it takes is basically the image that we want to create. So let's say that we want to create a copy of this image. So I will just copy this thing and we'll just paste it right here. Alright, so now in here I will just specify, let's say 5000. In here first of all it will just show this image and then it will just wait for, or let's say in here I will just specify 0, and as soon as I just close basically this image, and then it will just create this image with this name beautiful lana.png. Alright, so let's execute this whole code. Alright, so here we have this image, and now as soon as I close this button, it should create this image beautiful lana.png in my project location. So let me just close it. Alright, so you can see that it has now created this image beautiful lana.png. So let me just show you this image. So here is the image that we have created using OpenCV. So yeah, these are some of the basic functionality of OpenCV. This is how we can actually read and then show and then create an image using OpenCV. So yeah, that's just the basic functionality of OpenCV. Alright guys, now I will just make this code look a little better by introducing some keyboard events in OpenCV. So let's say that I only want to destroy this image lana.png when I press the escape button on my keyboard. And then similarly, let's say that I only want to save this image beautiful lana.png when I press the S button on my keyboard. So right here, basically this wait key function basically returns the key that is being pressed. So let's say that I will just store that key in this variable key. And now in here, I will say that if that key pressed is basically my escape button. So basically 27 is an integer value for my escape button, and this basically means that if the key pressed is my escape button, then I just want to destroy all the windows that I've created. So I will just cut this code from here, and now I will just paste it right here. Alright, now similarly, I will say that if my key pressed is the S button on my keyboard, then I want to create this image beautiful lana.png. So right here, I will just do it a little different. I will say that if key equal to odd, so basically I'm using this function odd, and now in here I will say that S, and this basically means that, so make sure that you have this function right here if you want to see if your key pressed is S or not. So in here we are saying that if the key pressed is my escape button, then I want to destroy all the windows, and then in here I'm just using this special function ORD to see if my key pressed is S button or not. So if it is, then I want to create this image. So just cut it from here, and then I will just paste it right here. And once this image is created, then I still want to destroy all my windows. So I'll just again copy this code from here, and then I will just paste it right here. And yeah, that's all I need to do. So now we can execute this whole code, but first of all, let me just change this name to something else because we already have this image beautiful lana.png. Alright, so this time I'll just name it as awesome lana.png. Alright, so now I can just execute this whole code. Alright, so we have this image of Lana. So now I can either close it by pressing on this button cross, or I can just press the escape button on my keyboard. So if I just press the escape button on my keyboard, it will just exit this window. Alright, and now similarly, let's say we just execute this whole code once again. And now let's say that I want to create this image awesomelana.png. So if I just press the S button on my keyboard, it will just create this image awesomelana.png. So let me just press S on my keyboard, and you can see that it has created this image awesomelana.png, and then it destroyed all of these windows. So let me just show you this image. So here we have the same image as we have in the previous part, which was beautiful lana.png. Alright, so these are some of the basic keyboard events in OpenCV. Alright guys, welcome to another video on OpenCV. Now in this video, I'm going to be drawing some geometric shapes on images using OpenCV. So we have this code from the previous video in which first of all I'm reading my image, and then I'm showing my image, and then I'm displaying my image as long as I click on the close button. And then once I have showed my image and then click on the close button, then I'm destroying all my windows that I've created. Alright, now what I'm going to do is that, well, first of all, let me execute this whole code once again to show you the beautiful image of Miss Lena. So here we have this image. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to draw some geometric shapes on this image. So the first shape that I want to draw is basically a line. So basically I want to draw a line, let's say, on this image. So let's do it. So now let's close, and now before showing this image, I basically want to draw a line on this image. So right here, what I'm going to do is that I will basically override this variable image in which we have this image. So right here I'll just type img equal to cv2, and now to draw a line, we're going to use a function in OpenCV known as line. And now the first argument it takes is basically the image itself, and then basically the starting coordinate, and then the ending coordinate, and then the color of that line, and then the thickness. Alright, so let me just first type line, and now the first argument is basically the image, which is right here stored in this variable img, and then we have the starting coordinate. So we need to specify the starting coordinate in the form of a tuple. So let's say that the line will start at 0 and 0 coordinate, and then similarly the third argument is basically the ending coordinate. So let's say it will be 255 and then 255, which is basically the center of the image. And then the next argument is basically for the color. So we need to specify the color in the form of BGR and not RGB. So let's say that I want to draw, let's say, red color on it. So for blue, let's say we will say that the concentration of blue will be 0 because we want to draw a red line. And then similarly we have B, G and R. So for green, let's say again the concentration of it will be 0, and now for red the concentration of it will be 255. So this will basically draw pure red line starting from this coordinate till this coordinate. Alright, so we now have this coordinate. Well, if you specify here, let's say 255 and then here 0, then it will basically draw a green image because we have BGR. So 0 for blue and then 0 for red, while for green it is 255. So remember that you have to specify these values in the form of B, G and R. So let's say that if you want to, let's say, have some other color. So if you go to this website rapidtables.com/web/color/rgb_color.html, then in here you can find the BGR, or you can say the RGB code for every color. Like for example, for let's say this color red, you can see that it is 255 for red, and then for it is 0 for green and then 0 for blue. But remember that in OpenCV we have to specify these values in the form of BGR, that is in the reverse order. So here it is RGB. So remember that in OpenCV we have to specify it BGR, that is in the reverse direction. So it should be 0, 0 and 255 in OpenCV for red. And then similarly, let's say that you want somewhere like this color. So it will look something like this. So for this, we need to specify value for red equal to 128, and then for green it is 97, and then for blue it is 97 as well. And then similarly, if you want to draw some, if you want to have some other color, then just move on this cursor somewhere in here or any other location where you want to have that color. So and then you have to basically copy these values, but basically in the reverse direction if you want to do it in OpenCV. Alright, so now in here I basically want, let's say, green line on this image, so that is why I have 0 for blue and then 0 for red, and then for green I have the concentration of green equal to 255. Alright, and now the next argument is basically the thickness of the line. So we can specify any value of thickness starting from 0 to any other value, but let's say that the thickness will be let's say 5. Alright, and yeah, this will basically draw a line starting from this coordinate till this point, and then it will draw the green line and the thickness of it will be 5. Alright, so now if I just execute this whole code, you will see basically the image of Miss Lina, but you can see that in here we are seeing this a black line instead of green line, and this is because we are basically displaying a grayscale image, and in grayscale image we only have two colors, that is black and white. So you can see that the flag value for this function IamRead is 0, which means that I want to draw a grayscale image. So for this, in order to display a colored line and a colored image, so you have to specify here 1. And now if I just execute this whole code once again, now this time you should be able to see a green line instead of a red line. So let me just execute. Alright, so here we have this image of Miss Lina, and now you can see that we have this colored image, and now we have this line starting from this coordinate, which is 0 0 right here, and then right at the center, which is 255 and 255. Alright, so this is how we can draw a simple line on this image. Now you can draw an arrowed line as well. So for this we use a function. So again in here I'm going to basically override this variable img, and now I'll just put it equal to cv2 dot arrowed line, and now the first argument is the image itself, and now for the second argument we need to specify the starting coordinate. So let's say it will start from 0 0, and now the ending coordinate, which is, let's say again 255 and then 255, and now the next one is basically the color of that line. So this time let's say that I want red color, so we have to specify 0 for blue and then 0 for green and then the full concentration of red, which is 255. And now the next argument is basically thickness, and now let's increase the thickness of this line to, let's say, 10 instead of 5. Alright, so now if I just execute this whole code once again, you will see an arrowed line. Now you can see that we have this arrowed line. It is basically overwriting the previous line. Well, let me just separate this arrowed line from the previous line. So for this we have to change the coordinate, and now let's change the coordinate, basically the starting coordinate, and the starting coordinate will be, let's say, start from 255, which is along y-axis. It should be right at the center, and then it should be good as well. And now if I just execute this whole code once again, and now you should be able to see an arrowed line which should be now separate, and now here we have this arrowed line in red color. So previously we had this line in green, and now we have this line, an arrowed line in red. Right, and now we can draw different shapes, like for example we can draw a rectangle on this image as well using the rectangle function in OpenCV. So again right here I will just override this variable img and put it equal to cv2, and now this time the function that we're going to be using is known as rectangle. So a rectangle, and you can see that the first argument is basically the image, and then we have the starting coordinate, and then we have the ending coordinate, and then we have the color of this rectangle, and then we have the thickness. Alright, so let's use this function rectangle, and now obviously the first argument is basically the image, and now let me show you a file to show you how it basically draw a rectangle. So I'm gonna open my notepad file right here. Alright, so now this is, let's assume that this is a rectangle, where it's a very nasty rectangle, but assume that this is a rectangle, and now this is basically the starting coordinate, which is x1 and y1, and then this is the ending coordinate. So we have to specify the starting and then the ending coordinate, and then it basically joins all these lines, these horizontal and vertical lines to these points, and in this way it draws a rectangle. Alright, so now first of all let's specify the starting coordinate. So we need to specify it in the form of a tuple, and now for the starting coordinate we will say that it should be 384. It should be 384, and then 0, which will be the starting coordinate, and now for the ending coordinate, it should be, let's say, 510 and then 128. And next is basically the color of this rectangle. So let's say it will be this time red as well. So 0 for blue, and then 0 for green, and then 255 for red. And the next argument is basically the thickness of this rectangle. So let's say that the thickness of this rectangle will be 5. Alright, so yeah, that's all we need to do to draw a rectangle on this image. And let's execute this whole code once again. Alright, so now you can see that we have this rectangle in red. Now let's say that you want a filled rectangle. So instead of specifying here the value of 5 or any other value for thickness, if we specify the value of thickness to -1, it will basically draw a filled rectangle in red color, because in here we have specified the red color. Alright, so now let's execute this whole code once again. Alright, so now you can see that we now have this filled rectangle. Now we can also draw a circle as well on this image as well. So now let's draw a circle before showing this image. So again, I'm gonna override this variable img and put it equal to cv2, and now the function that we're gonna use for drawing a circle is known as circle. So now the first argument it takes is basically the image itself, and then we have the center value, and then we have the radius, and then we have the color of this circle, and then we have the thickness. Alright, so first of all, let's use this function circle, and now the first argument is basically the image, and now for the next value we have to specify the center coordinate of that circle that we want. So let's say that I want my circle, the center position of my circle will be at this coordinate 445 and 62, let's say. Alright, and now for the next argument I need to specify the radius of my circle. So let's say that the radius of my circle will be 62, and now for the next argument I need to specify the color of the circle. So let's say that the color this time will be let's say green. So 0 for blue, and then 255 for green, and then 0 for red as well. And then the thickness of this circle will be, let's say, 5. Alright, so now if I just execute this whole code once again, you should be able to see now a circle on this. So in here we have now this circle in green color. And now similarly, if you want to draw a filled circle, so in here you need to specify the value of for thickness, you have to specify the value of -1, and this will basically draw a filled circle instead of an empty circle. So let's execute this whole code once again, and now this time you should be able to see a filled circle in green color. Alright, now the last thing that I want to teach for this video is how we can basically put text on this image. Well, for this we're going to use a function in OpenCV known as put text. So let's use this function. So again, I'm going to override this variable img, and now I'm going to use a function known as put text. And you can see that the first argument is basically the image, and then we have the text on this image, and then we have basically the coordinate where we want to start that text, and then we have the type of font that we want to use, and the next argument is basically the size of the font, and then the color of the text. Alright, so the first argument, as you know, is basically the image itself, and now for the next argument, we need to specify what text basically I want to have on my image. So let's say it will be like awesome image, and now the third argument is basically the coordinate where I want to start my text. So let's say it will be 10 and 500, which is I think somewhere at the bottom of the image. And now the next argument is basically the type of font that I want to use. So for this in here, I'm going to create a variable, and I will name this variable as font and put it equal to this module cv2, and then I'm going to say that font. Well, now you can use any of these font type. So let's say I'm going to use this one, let's say simplex. Alright, so I'm going to use this one. Oops, if I can. Alright, so now for the third argument, we need to specify the type of font, and now in this case we want to use this font, which is stored in this variable font. So for the third argument, I need to specify this variable font. Alright, and now the next argument is basically the font size. So let's say that the font size will be 5 or let's say 4. And now the next argument is basically the color of the text. So let's say that we want to display that text in red color. So it will be 0 for blue and then 0 for green and then 255 for green, for red. Alright, and now the next argument is basically the thickness of the text. So let's say that the thickness of the text will be 10. And now the last argument is basically the type of line that I want to use. So it will be, let's say, cv2 dot line, let's say AA. And this will basically display that text in the form of a specific line. Well, let me just execute and then I will explain. So now if you just execute this code, you should be able to see this text, awesome image, using these characteristics on our image. So now let's execute this whole code. Alright, so it has been executed successfully. And here we have this beautiful image of Miss Lena. And now you can see that it is saying that awesome. So since the font sizes are very, very high, so well, let's decrease or let's have something like small text, let's say great. Alright, so now if you just execute this whole code once again. Oops, oh my god. Alright, so now you can see that we have this text, the font of it is 4 and then we have the color of the text which is in red. Alright, so this is how we can use basically draw different geometric shapes on this image. Well, you can have any image, but this is one of the most popular image while doing image processing using OpenCV. Well, you can draw some other shapes, like you can draw an ellipse and many other shapes in OpenCV. All you need to do is to basically use that function that you want to draw on an image. So yeah, this is how we can display different kinds of geometric shapes on an image. And yeah, that's it for this video as well. Alright guys, welcome to another video on OpenCV. So in the previous videos, we were working on images, and now in this video, we're gonna work on videos. And we're gonna first of all capture the live video from our on camera using OpenCV. Now to capture videos from our on camera using OpenCV, we're gonna use a class in OpenCV called video capture. So first of all, I'm gonna make the instance or object of this class, and I will name this object as cap. Well, you can name it anything you want and put it equal to cv2. And now inside this class, we're gonna call a class called video capture. And now this class will basically help us in capturing video using OpenCV because it contains all the method and properties that will help us in capturing videos. And now if you want to capture video using your default camera, then in here you need to type 0. Well, in most devices you need to type here 0 for the default camera, but in some devices you need to type -1 as well. So first of all, just try 0, and if it is not working, then make sure that you also try -1 as well, because in some devices it is -1 for the default camera. Now let's say that you have like multiple cameras, like 3 or 4 cameras, and you want to select only one. Then the default camera is basically at 0, and then the first camera is at 1, the second camera is at 2, the third camera is at 3, and so on. So the default camera is basically at 0, so in here we need to type 0 in most devices. Alright, so now in here I will just say while true, and this basically means that as long as this condition is true, we're gonna keep on capturing our video. So basically to read our video, to basically read our live video, we're gonna call a function in this class, a video capture, known as read. I'm gonna call this function using this instance cap. So I'll just type here cap.read. Alright, now this read function basically returns two things. First of all, it returns either true or false. So we will store either true or false in this variable ret. And now the second thing it returns is basically the frame it has read at that specific instance. So it will return true if it has successfully read our camera and that there is no problem in our default camera. So then it will return true, and then the second thing it will return is basically the frame it has read. Alright, so now we have basically the frame that we have read, and now we're going to show that frame as well using the IM show class that we were using in the previous videos as well. So now in here, I will just type cv2.im show because we want to show that frame that we have captured, that we have read basically. Now the first argument it takes is basically the title of our basically video frame. So let's say that we're gonna give the title as a video frame, and now the second argument it takes is basically the frame it has read at that specific instance. So let's type here this variable frame that it has read right here. All right, now basically we want to quit our video frame as soon as the user press Q button on his keyboard. So in here I will say that just like in the previous video we were doing, I will just type cv2 if cv2 dot wait key equal to the Q key. So we were using this function ORD in the previous video as well, and this function basically capture the key that is pressed. So if that pressed key is equal to the Q key on my keyboard, then we're gonna basically come out of this loop using the break statement. And then once it has come out of the loop, then we're gonna basically release all the resources that our CPU was using in capturing this video. So our CPU is basically using some resources while it is basically reading our frame. So now we need to release these resources once the user press Q on his keyboard, because at that point we want to exit our video frame. Now we should release all the resources as well. So let's type here cap, which is basically this variable right here, cap dot release. All right, and now the final thing that we will do is basically we will destroy all the windows that were basically created while capturing the video. So in this case, there is only one window, so we will use this function called destroy all windows. And yeah, that's all we need to do for capturing our live stream using our on default camera. Alright, so now let me just tell you one last thing before we can execute this code, and that is basically, so let's say that you want to read a specific video file on your computer. So for this, you need to specify in here in the form of a string the exact path of that file. So let's say that that file is in my project location. So let's say that file is named as taylor.mp4, or let's say AVI or anything. So you need to specify the exact location of that file. And let's say that that file is basically placed in your project location, then you can basically access it just by specifying its name. But if that file is placed somewhere else on your computer, then you need to specify the exact location of that file right here. But in this case, we basically want to capture the live video using our default camera. So in here, I need to specify 0. And yeah, that's all we need to do for capturing live video using OpenCV. So now let's execute this whole code. And basically, yeah, so basically I will be showing something. I will be showing my register to you. So let me just execute this whole code. Alright, so you can see that this is my basically register that I'm basically using to create different videos. So yeah, you can see that here's my register, and this is basically the classic register. Alright, so you can see that it's basically successfully capturing the video. And now when I press the Q button on my keyboard, it will basically exit this video frame. So you can see that the title of this frame is a video frame, and that we have set. And now when I press the Q button on my keyboard, it will exit this video frame. Alright, so now I have pressed Q on my keyboard and it has successfully exited my video frame. So you were seeing that it was basically capturing the colored image. And now let's say that you want to capture only the grayscale image. So for this in here, before showing this frame, we're going to convert this colored image. So by default, it is basically capturing the colored image. So now let's say that you want, before showing this video, before showing this frame, we're going to convert that frame into a grayscale image. So right here, we're going to convert this frame into a grayscale image. So right here, I will just type, I will create a variable and I will name this variable as gray and put it equal to cv2.cvt color. Now the first argument it takes is basically the frame that I want to convert into a grayscale image. So I'll just type here frame, And now for the second argument, I need to type, so I'll just type CV2, which is basically the module. And now since it was capturing the colored image, and now we need to convert that colored image to a grayscale image. So I'll just type here CV2 underscore color underscore. I want to convert the BGR image to the grayscale image. So yeah, this is basically the property that I have to use to convert the BGR or the colored image to a gray image or a gray frame. So now if I just execute this whole code, alright, so you can see that, oops, and we are, I think, getting some kind of error because again it is capturing the colored image. So let's exit this video frame by pressing Q on your keyboard. And now let's see where is the error. Alright, so basically in here we are basically again passing that color frame. In here actually we need to pass this gray image, that gray frame basically, because in here we have converted this frame, basically this frame, into a gray image. So now in here we need to pass in this variable gray. Alright, so now it should work absolutely fine. And now let's execute this whole code once again. Alright, so now you can see that it is basically now capturing this grayscale video. Basically it's capturing images which is being shown by our camera in grayscale. So this is how we can basically capture grayscale image using OpenCV. So now I'm going to quit this video frame. Alright, now there are different video properties that we can use using this variable cap, and the first one that we're going to use is called isOpened, and it will make sure if the video that we are trying to capture is available or not. So there might be many problems while capturing the frame. The first one might be that we have specified the incorrect basically path. So let's say instead of something like the correct path, I just specify an incorrect path like this. So it will basically throw an error. So that function is opened will return false. So now in here, instead of let me just in here just type 0, and now in here I'm going to use this property or this function called is opened. So basically we need to call this function using this variable cap dot, so cap dot is opened. Alright, so now it will basically return true because everything is working fine here. But now let's say that since I only have one camera, and that is basically the default camera. So now let's say that instead of the default camera, I just specify some incorrect camera. And let's say that I just specify here 6. Alright, so now it will not execute basically. So in here it will basically return false because this is open function either return true or false. So it will return true if the video that it was trying to capture is available. But now since we are basically reading the incorrect camera, so that frame will not be available and it will return false. So in here we will have that false. Alright, so now let's execute this code, and you will see that we will have no frame this time. And you can see that if I just show you my console screen, you can see that our program is executed, and it executed without showing me anything. And the reason for this is that it has returned basically this thing has returned false, and so it basically didn't execute anything inside this while loop, and it basically destroyed that window immediately without even creating it. Alright, now let's say that alright, so in here let's say that I'm just reading some incorrect path, and let's say that it's something like this. And now if you just execute this code once again you will see that it will show nothing. Alright, so you can see that our program is in the running state, and alright, so you can see that it has basically written some kind of error. And this is because we are reading the incorrect path. We should read a correct path right here. Alright, now the last thing that I want to teach for this video is basically how we can get the height and width of our video frame. So let me just change it back to 0, which is basically our default camera. And now right here, before showing this image in here, right here, basically I'm gonna get the frame, basically this frame width and height. So right here I will basically print these frame width and height. So I'll just type here print, and now using this variable cap, I'm gonna get I'm gonna call a function called get. And now for the argument, we basically I just need to type cv2 dot cap underscore prop underscore frame width, and now I also need to print out my height as well. So I'll just copy and paste this thing right here as well. So in here I will just type here height. All right, so this get function, so I'm using this function get to capture my frame width and my frame height. So yeah, this will basically tell us the frame width and height. So now let's execute this code once again. Alright, so you can see that it has been executed successfully, and you can see that my frame width is 640 while my frame height is 480. So this is how we can get basically the frame height and frame width. Alright, so it is giving us some warning message. Well, we will remove this warning message in the coming videos. So you can see that, let me just scroll it up. Alright, so you can see that the frame width is 640 pixels and the frame height is 480 pixels. Alright guys, welcome to another video on OpenCV. And now in this video, I'm gonna show you how we can basically save the video that we were capturing in the previous video. So since we need to capture and save the video as well, so we basically need to create the video, or we can say that we need to write the video that we are capturing. So for writing that captured video, OpenCV has a class called video write. So we're gonna use that class, and I'm gonna use that class right below this line of code. So I'm gonna first of all create the instance of that class, and I will name this instance as out. Well, let's name it as output and put it equal to cv2 dot video writer. And now the first argument it takes is basically what name we want to give to that video file. So we're gonna name that file as, let's say, register, and an extension of it will be, let's say, AVI. And now for the second argument, we need to provide the 4cc code. Now what is the 4cc code? Well, first of all, let's go to the documentation to see what it is and how it basically works. Alright, so here we are on this side, 4cc.org. Alright, and now let's see what basically a 4cc actually is. So I'm gonna open this link which says what is 4cc, and now here I am on this link which is right here, 4cc.org/4cc.php. Alright, so in saying that 4cc is basically the 4 character code, so it basically stands for 4 character codes, and now it is basically an identifier for video codec, compression format, color or pixel format used in media files. So it is basically a compression format or a video codec that you need to specify for writing videos. And now let's see what things that we can give in place of this 4cc. So in here I can say I will just go to this video codecs, a list of 4cc identifying various video codecs. So let's click on this second link, and now you can see that we can basically pass all of these values for different 4cc. Now the most common values that we can pass is basically these values, which is DIVX and then XVID and then H264, DX50, but there are many others that we have seen right here. So you can see that it's a very long list, but we're gonna use the one called XVID. Alright, so now in here, right above this line of code, I will just create a variable 4cc, and I will put it equal to cv2 dot video writer underscore 4cc. And now in here, I need to specify that value, which is XVID, and that is basically used for video compression. Let me just show you. It is basically an identifier for a video codec, compression format, and then color or pixel format that is basically used in media files. Alright, so now let's open our PyCharm once again. Alright, so now we have this 4cc code, and now for the second argument inside this class video writer, we need to pass basically this 4cc color code, this 4cc code. So we have stored this code in this variable 4cc. So for the second argument, I'll just type here 4cc. Alright, now the third argument is basically how many frames that we want to capture per second. Well, for a good video, it should be 20 frames per second. And now the last argument we need to pass is basically the height and width of our video format. So we need to pass it in the form of a tuple, and let's say it will be 640 pixels by 480 pixels. So 640 will be the width and 480 will be the height. Alright, so yeah, that's all we need to do for this class video writer. And now all we need to do is now to work inside this while loop. Alright, so now we need to basically write our frame. So in here, you can see that we are capturing that frame, and now we need to write, or we can say save that frame as well. So for this, I will just type output dot write. So basically I'm using this variable out, and now inside this class video writer we have a function called write, which will basically save that frame that it has read using this read function. So read, and now as an argument we need to pass, basically we need to save this frame. So the only argument it takes is basically this frame. And now in here I will just check something right here. I will say that if that value, which is in here return, is equal to the true value, then we can basically put this whole line of code inside our if block. Alright, so if that return value is true, because it will only return true if it has successfully captured that frame. If that return value is true by the read function, then we're gonna first of all convert, well, let's capture the gray, basically the colored image. So in here, instead of passing this gray, we need to pass this variable frame, that colored frame. Alright, so now in here we are checking if that cv2 dot is equal to the Q button, then we are basically exiting this button. And yeah, that's all we need to do. And now the last thing that in here we need to do is basically to release all these output frames as well. So in here, I will just say output dot release as well. And yeah, that's all we need to do for capturing this video. So what it will do is that it will first of all create a video of this name register.avi, and now it will basically capture 20 frames per second. And now the height of this video frame will be 640 pixels and then by 480 pixels wide. And then and now in here we are basically saving each frame that it is reading right here. So in here we are basically saving that frame, and then we are saying that if that return value is true, then just keep showing that frame. And if we just press the Q button on my keyboard, then we're gonna basically come out of this loop and we're gonna release all these resources. Alright, so now we can execute on this whole code, and you will see that it will then create a video file with this name register.avi, and we'll save it in our project location. Alright, so now let's execute this whole code. Alright, so you can see that again I'm just recording my register. Alright, so you can see that here is my register, and now when I just press Q on my keyboard, it will just exit this video. So let me just press Q on my keyboard. Alright, so now I have pressed Q on my keyboard, and you can see that it has basically created a video file of this name register.avi in our project location. And now let's open this file register.avi. So if you just go to the project location, which I am right here, which is in my C drive, and then Python tutorials, you can see that I have this file register that it has basically created, and the size of this file is 2.47, and the total length of this file is 14 seconds. Alright, so now let's play this file. Alright, so this is what we captured while creating our video, and this is what it is. Alright, so now this is how we can basically, let's hit complete, and now let's close. Alright, so this is how we can basically capture and save the video as well using our default camera. Alright guys, welcome to another video on OpenCV. So in the previous videos we learned how to put text on images. Now in this video I'm gonna show you how we can put text on videos. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna put the height and width of the frame on the video. So here we are basically getting the frame width and then in here we are getting the frame height. Now we're gonna put this frame width and height on our video. So let's do it. So first of all, I'm gonna create a text variable that I want to put on my video frame. So in here I'm gonna create a variable, and I will name this variable as text. You can name it anything you want and put it equal to first of all we need to put the height, basically the width. So just type here width. The width will be equal to, basically we need to concatenate it with this thing. So I'm just gonna copy this whole thing and we'll paste it right here. And now you need to make sure that you basically convert this thing into a string, because we are concatenating basically this string with this thing. So we need to convert this into a string. So str, and yeah, that's all we need to do. And yeah, all right, so now here we have the width, and now we're gonna put the height of the frame as well. So I will just concatenate the width with the height as well. So I'll just say, and here I will say that height is equal to basically this thing. So I'm gonna just copy this whole thing, copy, and we'll paste it right here. And you need to make sure that you convert this thing into a string, because we are doing concatenation. Alright, so yeah, that is now looking fine. Alright, so now we have this text, and now we need to put this text on our video frame. So the function that we're going to use for this purpose is the same as we use for putting a text on images, and that function is known as put text. So basically we need to put that text on this frame. So I'm going to basically override this variable frame that we are reading right here while doing the while capturing the live video. So right here I will say that my frame will be now equal to cv2.put text, and now the first argument is basically, we need to pass is basically the frame on which we want to put that text, and the second argument we need to pass is basically the text which is stored in this variable text, and now the third argument we need to supply is basically the coordinate where we want to put that text. So let's say it will be 10 along x-axis and 20 along y-axis. Alright, and now the next argument we need to supply is basically the font, the type of font that we want to have for this text. So right in here I'm going to create a variable, and I will name this variable as font and put it equal to cv2.font. And so this is basically the type of font. So this is basically one type of font, but you can feel free to choose any type of font of your wish. Alright, so now for the fourth argument we need to supply that font which is now stored in this variable font. So just type here font, and now the next argument we need to supply is basically font size. So let's say that the font size or font scale will be 1, and now the next argument we need to pass is basically the color. So let's say that we want to have a red color for this text. So remember, we need to pass that color in BGR format and not RGB format. So for blue it will be 0, and then for green it will be again 0, and then for red the concentration of red will be 255. Alright, now the next argument we need to pass is basically the thickness of the text. So let's say that the thickness will be 2, and now the final argument we need to pass is basically the type of line we want to have for this text. So let's say it will be cv2.line underscore AA. Alright, well, you can use any type of line. You can just check how your text look like if you just change this line to something else. So in here you can find different types of line that you can use. Just type line, and then you can use this thing, and then this one, any type of line that you want. So I want to use this first one, which is line underscore AA. Alright, so yeah, now we have this frame, and we are putting basically this text on this frame that we are overwriting right here. Alright, and yeah, that's all we need to do. Now on the video we should be able to see the frame width, basically this text, which is basically the frame width and frame height. So now let's execute this whole code, and again basically I will be showing my register to you guys. So let me just put my register in front of my camera. Alright, so now let me just execute this whole code, but you should be able to see the frame width and then the frame height on this video frame as well. Alright, so we are getting some kind of error, and it's saying that argument prop id is required to be an integer. Alright, so we are basically getting error on this line and whoops. Alright, so basically this get function basically returns it's basically returning an integer value, and what we're gonna do is that we're gonna basically convert let me just get rid of this bracket, not here. Alright, so now basically we need to put this whole thing in the string function. Alright, so now for this and then for here as well. So yup, so str, and yeah, now it should be fine. And now let me just execute this whole code. It should work now fine. Alright, so now let me just execute. Alright, so you can see that we have the frame width and then the frame height on our screen. So in here you can see that frame width, the width of the frame is 640 while the frame height is 480 pixels. So this is how we can put text on videos. Alright, and now let me just teach you one cool method. Alright, so now every property that we use in OpenCV has basically an integer value associated with it. Like for example, instead of just typing here this whole thing, cv2.cap prop get prop frame width, what we can do is that we can just simply just type here 3, and this basically points towards the width property of the frame. And then similarly for the height, we can just simply type here 4 instead of just typing this thing, because as I told you that every property in OpenCV is basically associated with an integer value. So either you can type this whole thing right here. So either you can type this whole thing right here, or you can just simply specify the integer value which is associated with this property. Alright, and now if you just execute this whole code, it will work again exactly the same. Alright, so again you can see that the output is same, still the width is 640 pixels and then the height is 480 pixels. Alright, so this is how we can put text on videos as well. And now the last thing that we will do is we will basically display the current date and time on our video frame as well. So for this, I'm gonna first of all import the date time module right here. So just type here import date and time. Alright, and now in here, right in here, I will just create a variable and I will name this variable as day and time and put it equal to that module date time dot, and then we will call a class called date time. And now inside that class, we will call a method called now, and this will basically get the current date and time. And now instead of putting this text, basically this text on our frame, what we will do is that we will put this date and time which is stored in this variable dt. So instead of just specifying here text, we will just specify here that current date and time on our video frame. Okay, so before we move on, we first of all need to install all the modules that are going to help us in making the screen recorder application. So open your command line if you're using Windows and open your terminal if you're using Mac or Linux. So if you're using Python, you can actually open your terminal inside of it by clicking on this option, terminal right here. And now the first one that we want to install is the numerical Python module, and in short, it is called the NumPy module. So to install it, just simply type pip install and then the name of the module, which is NumPy, which actually stands for numerical Python. So hit enter and it will start installing that module on your computer. But I'm not going to hit the enter button because I already have installed this module on my computer. But in your case, just hit the enter button and it will start installing that module on your computer. It may take like a minute or two depending on your internet connection. So make sure that you have your internet connection before you install this module. Okay, now the next module that we're gonna need is the PyAuto GUI module. So just simply type PyAuto GUI module. So again, hit the enter button and it will start installing that module as well. Again, it will just take like a minute or two depending upon your internet connection. And now the last module that we have installed while covering OpenCV is the OpenCV module. And if you just want to install OpenCV in Python 3 point something, just simply type OpenCV hyphen Python and hit enter, and it will start installing that module as well. But if you're using Python version 2 point something, which I believe that you won't be using because Python is now everyone is now using Python version 3 and not Python version 2 point something. But if you're still using it, you just need to install pip install and then for Python version 2 point something, you need to install CV2. But in here, since I'm using Python version 3 point something, so I'm going to install OpenCV-Python and again hit the enter button, and it will start installing that module on your computer as well. So once all these three modules are installed, you are now ready to make your own screen recorder in Python for your mobile. UI window that we're going to be putting different widgets on. So let's just get started. So first of all, I'm going to import from kiwi.clock. I'm going to import the clock class. So right in here, I will just say kiwi dot not clock. Clock. I'm going to be importing this class clock. Next, I'm going to be importing the MD relative layout. So just type kiwi from Kiwi. Actually, we need to import it from Kiwi MD dot UIX dot relative layout. We're going to be importing the MD relative layout because this is going to be the layout that we're going to be using for our application. Next, we're going to be importing from Kiwi MD. We're going to be importing the MD app. So it is from Kiwi MD dot app. We're going to be importing the MD app class. Okay, next we're going to be importing the button class. So right in here, I will just say that from kiwi dot UIX dot button, we're going to be importing this class button as well. Next, we're going to be importing three modules that we have installed previously. The first one is the OpenCV module, and even though you have installed OpenCV like OpenCV-Python in Python version 3 point something, but you need to import it something like this. So import CV2 and not import and then this thing. Okay, so the next thing that we have installed in the previous video is the NumPy module or the numerical Python module. So NumPy, and in short, we're going to be using it as NP. Next, we're going to be importing the PyAutoGUI module as well that we have installed in the previous video as well. Okay, next we're gonna be importing Windows. So from kiwi.core, like this. So from kiwi.core.window, we're gonna be importing window. Okay, so now let's just say that we actually have imported each and everything, and now what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna create a class, and I will just name my class as my app. You can just name it anything you want, and I'm gonna pass this thing that we have imported in this video, and now right in here I will have my build function. So build, and now inside of this build function, I'm gonna display my layout. So I will just name it as a layout. You can just name it anything you want, and then I'm gonna put it equal to the class, which is MD relative layout that we have imported from kiwi.uix.relative layout. Okay, so now right in here, what this function will do is that it will actually return this layout. Okay, so now all we need to do is to actually call this function in order to display the layout. So right in here, first of all, let me scroll it down to make sure everything is visible. Since this function build is inside of this class my app, so I will just say that my app, and then in order to call the build function, you might know that we actually need to call this run method, and this run method will actually call this build method, which is actually inside of this class my app. Okay, so just by having this line of code, it will now actually execute our code, and we will just see that we have this window. By default, it has some width and height, and then the background color is actually this one that you are seeing. But we're going to change the background color, and then we actually need to be changing the height and width of this window as well, because we only need one button inside our widget. So we're going to be making it much smaller so that only one button can fit inside of it. So let's just do it. So first of all, in here, I'm going to resize my window. So right in here, we'll just say that window dot size it's just going to be equal to a tuple. And now inside of this tuple, I will just say it will be 450 along 415 width, and then 115 height. Yeah, I think that's the appropriate size because we will be placing only one widget, and that is going to be our button widget. And next, let's first of all execute it. Okay, so now we have this window, and now what I'm going to do is that in this video, I will just set the background color of this window to my favorite color, which is the light pink color. So right in here, I will just say that MD underscore BG underscore color, and this is gonna be equal to again a tuple, basically, sorry, it is actually equal to a list. And now inside of this list, we actually need to pass the RGB value of any color code that we want. Now you can actually Google the RGB value of any color. So for example, if you just want to set the RGB value. Say that you just want, let's just say, light blue background. Then you simply Google what is the RGB value of light blue color, and it is gonna give you the RGB value of light blue color, or any color that you want. So right in here, I just want the light pink color. So the RGB value of it is 248, and then 248 it is 200, and then not 220, it is 200, and then 220. Okay, so this basically expect this argument right in here is expecting that I actually need to specify its value somewhere in between 0 to 1. So right in here, the RGB value is from 0 to 255. So the maximum value is 255. So I actually need to divide it by 255 so that the value can be in between 0 to 1, and not this value, which is 248, 220. So I'm dividing it by 255 so that the value can be in between 0 to 1. Okay, so yeah, this will actually set the background color of my layout to light pink color, because this is what the RGB value of light pink is. And you can see that we have this light pink color for our layout. Okay. Okay, so let's just create the record button. So right in here, below this layout, I'm going to create a variable in which I will store that button, and I will just name this button as record button. You can just name it anything you want. And I'm going to put it equal to that class that we have imported, and that is the button class that we have imported from Kiwi. Okay, the first thing I just need to pass is what is going to be the text on this button. So the text on this button is going to be record. Okay, next, what is going to be the position? So the position hint is just going to be equal to a dictionary. And what I want is that I want it to be at center along x-axis. So for center x, it will be at 0.5. And then for center y, so right in here, it will be at center y, it will be 0.55. Okay, so that's the center Y position, and next is going to be the size hint, which is going to be equal to a tuple, and it will be 0.8 and then none. Okay, because I want to set my own height, that is why I'm just setting for the height, I'm just setting it equal to none. And now let's say that the height is just going to be equal to 100. So in here, I'm just setting it equal to none because I want to specify the height in pixels and not in points. Okay, so that's the height. Next, what I'm going to do is that I will just set the font name. So font name is going to be, you might have guessed, it is comic. So again, you can just have any font name of your choice, but I'm just using the font name of comic. Okay, so that's the font name, and next I'll just say that bold is equal to true. Next I'll just say that the font size is just gonna be equal to okay, so this font size is going to be big, which is 45 pixels. Next, I'll just set the background color. So it is, yeah, it is background underscore color. It's going to be equal to an RGB value, and it will be 1, 1, and 0. Okay, so that's the background color. Next, when this button gets pressed, it can actually call a function. So right in here, I will just say that when this button gets pressed, you actually need to call a function, and that function will be uh, toggle underscore toggle underscore recording. Now we haven't created this function yet, and I'm going to explain what this function will do in the next video. But for now, let's just create this function only. Create this function, and for now, this function will do nothing. But in the next video, we're actually gonna work on this function. Okay, so this is the button, and now all we need to do is to actually put this button on our layout. So layout dot add widget, and then this button, which is the record button. Okay, so now let's just execute this code, and you should be able to see this record button right here on your layout. So you can see that this record button is for now. Oops. Just saying that my toggle recording takes one position or one or two were given. Okay, and that's because Since I have bind an event to this record button, and that event is actually the press event. So when the press event gets pressed, you actually need to call this toggle recording function. So this function should actually know about that event that we have binded to. And since we have binded to the on press event, so that in here that on press event will actually be passed to this toggle recording function. So by default, it will be passed to this function and will be received right here. So now this function know that the event is actually the on press event or the click event. So in Kiwi, we actually call it as the on press event. And it will be received right here. Okay, so now we just execute this code. You're gonna see basically this button, and this button for now is actually doing nothing, and that's because we haven't instructed because when this button gets pressed, it will actually call this function, and we haven't instructed this function to do anything because it is at the moment doing nothing, and that is why we have in here this keyword pause. Okay, so for now, what I'm gonna do, then I'm going to basically lay down the basic stuff for my recording. Basically, I'm going to define all the force values and all these things so that the next video, we can only work on this function toggle recording. So right in here, I have actually explained each and everything when we were just doing the OpenCV part, so I will not be explaining too much. So it is, first of all, I'm going to define my force, and I have explained what is force. So I'm just storing that force in this variable, and it will be CV2, and I'm going to call this function, it is video, and then right there. Okay, so with the video right there, I'm going to say basically video writer, and then actually it is 4cc, and the 4cc value I'm going to pass is going to be, so previously I think when we just doing that OpenCV part, I was just passing the xvid, and now I'm going to pass the mp4v. So right in here, let's type mp4 and then vim. So that's going to be my 4cc value, and I have explained again what actually 4cc is. Next, I'm going to define my output file. So I will just name this variable as output underscore file, and we will actually name our file as output dot mp4. So you can just name it anything you want, but I just named it as output.mp4. Okay, next, what is going to be the frame per second? So it will be this variable fps, and say that my frame per second will be 30. So now what I'm going to do is that right in here, I'll just create another variable out, and that is going to be, at the moment, it's going to be none. I will just let you know what this variable will do once we're gonna use it. Okay, so this is what this out is, and next I'm gonna create a variable recording, and I'm gonna set its value equal to false, because when our application will be executed, it will not be recording. We actually need to press the button, and then we're gonna set this value to true once the button gets clicked. Okay, so for now we're actually setting its value equal to false. Okay, and next, I'm gonna set the size of my my screen. So let's say that screen underscore size is gonna be equal to, and in my case it is 1920 by 1080. This is what it is in my case, but in your case it might be different, as I've told you in the OpenCV slides, in the OpenCV in the OpenCV tutorial. Okay, so first of all, let me explain what this function will do before we start working inside of it. Okay, so first of all, in here you can see that the text on this record button is record. So when this button gets pressed, this function will actually start recording the screen. But next, what we're gonna do is that what this function will do is that it will actually set the text on this record button to stop recording. So when it is actually recording the screen, the user will now have the option to stop the recording whenever he wants. And to say that now the user actually click on the button again and then stop the recording, then what we're going to do is that we're going to actually again set the text on this record button to record so that the user can have the option to record another video. And then once the user again click on it, then again we will actually set the text on this record button to stop record, so that the user can stop the recording whenever he want, when it is actually recording the screen. So this is what this function will do, is that it will actually keep on toggling the text on this button to record and stop recording. Okay, so now let's just start working inside of it. Okay, so now let's just first of all remove the past keyword. And now in here, what I'm going to do is that when this function gets called, in here, the text on it by default is recording. So you're going to first of all start recording. So right in here, we have set the value of recording equal to false. But when this button gets pressed, now the user actually want to record the screen. So now we're going to actually change the value of recording to true, because now the user want to start the recording. So what we're going to do is that we're going to actually negate its value using the not operator. We'll just say that if not this self dot recording, and this not will actually convert this false value to true. This is what this not operator actually do. This is actually the basic of Python. No need to explain. So if not self dot recording, then what we want to do is that we will now set. So previously we are just setting the self dot out variable to none, but now we're actually setting it equal to CV2, which is the module. And now inside of this, we actually need to call video writer, because now we actually want to write down the video. We actually want to record the video. You can actually call it as in programmatic words. You can actually call, we actually want to write down the video. So video writer, and now in here, we actually need to pass some basic stuff. First of all is basically what is going to be the output file. So my output file is going to be named as output.mp4, and I've stored that name in here, which is output file. Next, I actually need to define the 4cc value, which is going to be mp4 vim. So right in here, I've stored it in this variable self.4cc. So self.4cc. Next, I'm going to actually pass my frame per second. So self dot FPS, and my FPS, and here you can see that it will be 30 pixels, 30 frames per second, not 30 pixels. Oh god. Okay, so next I actually need to define the screen size. So I have defined my screen. So in my case it is 1920 by 1080 pixel, but in your case it might be different, as I've told you in the OpenCV tutorial. So in here, this is variable screen size. Okay, so this whole thing is just going to be over self dot out, basically this variable out. Okay, next, what we're going to do is that since in here it is basically in here it is actually false, and now in here we actually need to set it equal to true, because it is now recording the screen. This is actually self dot recording. It is going to be equal to true. And next, what this function will do is that it will actually change the text on this record button to stop recording, so that the user can have the option to stop the recording whenever he want. So text is just going to be equal to stop recording, stop recording. Okay. Next, so when the record button gets clicked, our window will actually be minimized, because we don't want to record our layout. We just want to record our screen and not the layout. So what we're going to do is that we're going to minimize our window. So window dot minimize. Okay, so this is actually a function inside my window. So the minimize function. Next, we actually want to call a function, and that function is going to be the record screen function. So right in here, we just have created the recorder, but now we actually need to record the screen. And for this, we're going to be creating a function, and that function will be called 30 times in 1 second, because this is what my FPS is going to be. So that is why I'm going to call this function 30 times in 1 second. So right in here, I'm going to be using clock in Kiwi. So I have previously imported it. Yup, right in here, it is still at the moment unused, but now we're going to be using it. So right in here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to call, what's the call? Let me just say that clock. and then I want to schedule an interval, and in here I'm going to actually call this record screen function that we haven't created yet, but we're going to actually create it in the next video. And this record function will be called basically 30 times in 1 second. So right in here, I will just say 1 divided by 30. So if you just divide 1 by 30, uh, it means that just call our record screen function in that amount of seconds. So whatever is the value of it. So I think it is 0.01. I know not 0.01. I think it's 0.03 or something like this. So call this function record screen after every 0.03 seconds, or in other words, it actually means call the record screen function 30 times in 1 second. So I believe it is making sense. But if that's not the case, if in here we have set the recording equal to true, and now say that just say that else I'm gonna say that self dot recording is just gonna be equal to false. So say that when the user actually click on the stop recording function, then I'm going to actually come inside the else block, and I'm going to say that self dot recording equal to false, and self dot record button dot text is just going to be equal to start recording or record. So record or start recording. You can just set the text anything you want. So now in here, since in here we have scheduled the interval 30 times in 1 second, now we can actually unschedule it because it is not recording it now. So we're gonna actually unschedule it. So right in here, let's say that clock dot unschedule, and now what we want to unschedule, we actually want to unschedule this function which was previously being called um 30 times in 1 second, and now we actually want to unschedule it. So record screen. Now just remember that we haven't created this function yet in here and then in here, but we're going to create it in the next video. Okay, so now we have unscheduled it, and now in here we have actually this variable, and now we actually want to release this thing out because around run now right in here we actually don't need it, so we're going to actually release it. So self dot out dot release. Okay, so yeah, that's all we need to be doing for the toggle recording function, but it will not be executed because we haven't created this function yet. But let's just create it. So let's just create it right here at the top. So dev, and then the name of this function, and then this argument, and now for now it will not do anything. But now we just execute this code, you just can see that. Okay, so it's saying that my no attribute self dot minimize. Really? It is in here. Right in here, we do not need this cell because our window right here is not inside of my class. It is actually outside of my class, so just simply window. Okay, so now let's just execute this code, and now let's just click on the record, and now you're going to see that here we actually need to pass that event. So right in here that is going to be my event. Next, let's just get rid of this keyword pass because we do not need it. And now what I'm going to do is that I will actually say that image, I'll create a variable image, and I'm going to put it equal to this variable, this module, pio to view, and then I'm actually call this screenshot function. Okay, so now why I'm actually calling this screenshot function, and that's because, well, actually, if you just see, when you are actually seeing a video, these are actually kind of screenshots. So it's gonna actually take, so since I'm actually calling this record screen function 30 times in 1 second, so it's gonna take 30 screenshots in 1 second. Now, when this screenshot actually get combined, they're gonna actually make a video. So since this screenshot will be displayed one after the other so fastly that it would just seems like it is actually a video, but in fact, by behind the scene, these are actually all the images that are being shown one after the other. But it's just gonna show 30 images in 1 second. So you're gonna keep on taking screenshot after every 1 second. It's gonna actually take 30 screenshots in 1 second, and then gonna basically display all the screenshots one after the other, and it would just seems like it is actually a video. So actually, whenever you just play a video, you might think that it's actually a video, but in fact, it is actually screenshots that are just being displayed so fastly that it just seems like it is actually a video. So this will actually take screenshots, and then we are actually storing all these screenshots in this variable image. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually create an array of all these images. So right in here, I will just say that frame it's just going to be equal to numpy. That is the module that we've imported. Now in here, I'm going to actually call this function array inside of this module. And now in here, I actually need to pass this variable image in which we are storing all the screenshots or images. So I'm actually creating an array of all the images, and then I'm just storing that array in this variable frame. And now what I'm going to do is that I will just say that a frame is just going to be equal to CV2. And next, we just need to define the proper color scheming for our video. And for this, we're gonna actually call this CVT color function. And now right in here, we're gonna basically first of all pass this frame. Next, by default, the color scheming is actually BGR, but we can actually change it to CVT dot. We can actually change it to color um, BGR, BGR2, BGR2 RGB. So by default, it is actually the color scheming is BGR, but now we're actually changing it to RGB because this is what I want for my color scheming for my recorder, for my recorded video. So that is going to be it. And now finally, we actually need to write down that frame. So right in here, I'll just say that self.out. Previously, we were just releasing it if it is not recording. Now we actually need to write it because now we actually want to write down that frame or actually record that frame. Okay, so yeah, that's all we need to be doing in the record screen function. And just remember that record screen function will be called 30 times in 1 second. So this is what it is actually doing. Call this record screen function after every 1 by 30th second. Okay, so yeah, I think our application is now absolutely ready, and now it should be able to record the screen once I actually click on the this record button. So let's just click on it. Okay, so it has been minimized and now it is actually recording the screen. So this thing will now actually go to the recording part. And yeah, now I can do whatever I want. I can just record anything for my screen and it is actually being recorded. But now let's just stop the recording. So right in here you can see that the text on it is actually changed to stop recording. And now when it's actually stopped that recording, you can see that the text on it is again changed to record. Okay, so in here you can see that it has created that file output.mp4. And now let's just see that file. So right in here, it's actually this file, which is 11 MB long or 11,883 kilobytes. So right in here, let's just play it. And now you can just see that this is what we have done for when we were actually recording it. And in here, you can see that it's 11 seconds long. And now then we have stopped the recording, and once it is stopped, then it has actually stopped the recording. But now what we can do is that again, we have that option of record, and now we can actually record the screen once again, and it will actually overwrite that file right in here, which is output.mp4. Or what you can do is that you can just simply change the output file name to something else like output number 1.mp4 or whatever you want. But this is our screen recorder. It is now absolutely 100% ready. But if you have any problem in this, all we've imported each and everything that we actually need for creating this application. And then the three important things are the OpenCV module, and then the NumPy module, and then the PyAutoGUI module. So right in here, first of all, we have created our build function, and our build function is first of all displaying our MD, our layout in this format, which is the MD relative layout. But you can have any other format like the box layout, or any other format, or the grid layout, or any other format that you want. But I'm actually choosing because I love this format, which is the MD relative layout format. Okay, so in here I'm actually calling the run method, and this run will actually call this method build. And the build is first of all creating all the necessary things, or actually creating all the basic things for our videos, like for example, our 4cc value that I'm actually using MP4V, but you can have any other 4cc value. I have basically shown you all the important and most commonly used values that you can use for your for CC. Next, we just named our output file. You can just name your output file anything you want. This is actually the function that is going to be that will actually take our recording in this rate in 1 second, means that it will actually take 30 screenshots in 1 second. Wow. But you can change it to 60 or 100, whatever you want. But this is just the ideal one. I think that you can actually decrease it to like 20 screenshots or 30. Well, whatever you want. This is totally up to you. Okay, so next, our output at the moment is none. Our recording is actually false. It will get true once it is actually recording the screen. And then we're actually so my screen resolution is a 9020 by 1080, but in your case it might be different. So just check out your screen resolution. Just simply search what is my screen resolution. It's gonna basically show you what is your screen resolution, and then in here you actually need to provide that value of your screen. But say that you just want a small part of your screen to be recorded, then what you can do is that you can just simply change the value. So for example, is my screen is 920 pixels in width. So for example, for the width, I just want like 500 pixels or 550 pixels. And then for the height, I just want, say I just want like 100 pixels. But since I want to record my entire screen, so I'm going to basically set the complete resolution of my screen, which is 920 by uh, 1080 pixel. Okay, next I have this record button, and this is the only widget that is going to be displayed on our layout. And when this button gets clicked, it's actually calling this toggle recording function. So now let's just go to this toggle recording function, and this toggle recording function is first of all setting the recording value to true, because it's actually not setting the recording value equal to true. In here, we're actually setting the recording value equal to true. But in here, we're just making this condition true by using this not operator, so that this thing can get executed, because the once we want to record the screen, it can actually come the doc recording function, and we want this condition to true so that it can actually start writing down the video. And then in here, we're just setting the value true equal to true. And then we are setting the text on the record button not text equal to stop recording, so that the user can stop the recording. When it is actually recording the screen, the user will have the option to stop recording as well. It's not like our screen will be recorded forever. We should have that option to stop the recording. And that is why we're actually setting the text to stop recording. And when the user click on the stop recording function, then it can actually come inside of the else block. This condition will now get false, because in here it will be true. And once it is true, then what it's actually doing is that we will just say if not, then it was true, and now it will be false. So it's going to come inside the else block. And then we are setting the record button text to true, and then unscheduled, and then we are actually releasing our output. So now right in here, we are setting the record value equal to false once again. So say that, so first of all, we are setting the record button text to record. So again, let's say that the user want to click the record button. So in here, in the else part, we have set its value equal to false. So in here, this not will again treat it as true because it was false. So this not will convert it into true. So means that this condition will true, and it will again start recording its screen. Okay, so this is what this toggle recording function is doing, is that simply it is actually toggling the text on the record button from stop recording to record, or from record to stop recording, and so on. Okay, so right in here, if it is recording the screen, then this condition will be true, and this record screen function will be called 1/30th of a second, or you can say that 30 times in 1 second. So right in here, let us go to this record screen function. In here, we're actually taking screenshots, and since it is calling this function 30 times in 1 second, so it's gonna take like 30 screenshots in 1 second. Okay, so now right in here, we are actually creating all the screenshot in this variable frame, and then we're converting into a NumPy array because there are so many screenshots that we have to convert into NumPy array, and then we actually have set this RGB value. So because by default it is the BGR color scheming, but we are actually setting it to RGB value, the RGB color scheming, because this is what I want the color scheming for my video, and then we are actually writing down that frame. Okay, so yeah, this is what it is doing. And so this function will be called 30 times in 1 second. But if it is not recording, then we want to unschedule this function. Means that it will not be called anymore. We have unscheduled it right here. All right, so yeah, this is the application, and now the assignment for you is that now you actually need to make. So in here we have made the screen recorder, and now I guess that you might make your own screenshot application as well. So this is the screen recorder where you can actually record your screen and video. But now what you need to do is that you actually need to create the screenshot application. So in here we're actually taking screenshot. So for that application, say that you will have a layout, and in that on layout, in here, instead of the record button, you will have the button take screenshot. And when that button gets clicked, then you're gonna actually take that screenshot using this, and then you actually need to save that screenshot. So you actually need to save it, and then first of all, when the take screenshot button gets clicked, you're gonna first of all minimize that screen. So you can minimize it, and then it can actually take the screenshot of your screen. So yeah, this is the assignment for you. Just create that application is pretty much simple to create. Creating a screenshot if you have made a screen recorder in Kiwi Python.